Hello, very beautiful community. Let's react to the extraordinary hot mic moment with Xi and Putin talking immortality. Now, some people thought that it's a meaningless little trite exchange. I actually think it's quite significant. It's not significant because it reveals anything surprising, but it is revealing of important but unsurprising things. In the past, she said via his interpreter, it used to be rare for someone to be older than 70, and these days they say 70 is still a child. An inaudible passage follows from Putin, and his Mandarin interpreter says, with the development of biotechnology, human organs can be continuously transplanted, and people can live longer and longer and even achieve immortality. She's interpreter then said, predictions are this century there's a chance of also living to 150 years old. So Putin unconstitutionally changed the constitution to allow himself to be in power till at least 2036. These formalities really don't matter. They have no bearing on how long he'll really stay in power. He'd be about 83 then. He's in his early 70s now. And make no mistake that he is actually thinking about death in two ways. He's thinking about death by saying, guys, get me to live as long as possible. I want a team of doctors constantly following me. But I also want some anticipation of potential health issues I don't have that I might run into. So I want this to be thought about really, really well, because we need to maximize the chances of me at least living till I'm 90, maybe mid-90s. So that's one kind of relationship he has with death, a very pragmatic relationship of maximization of functional life. Another relationship he has with death is one of denial. He doesn't like thinking about it, in my analysis, because there is a certain part of him that thinks he should be immortal. That can happen to people in positions of power who overstay and who are in positions of power that is unchecked power. It can also happen to other types of figures, for instance, artists. Picasso was of that mindset. He struggled with recognizing his mortality, and once one of his birds died during lunch, and somebody had to go out and bring in an identical one, and then Picasso turned to a person of the younger generation, having not been aware that his bird died, and got exchanged for an identical looking one. He said, look at my birds, they're immortal. That's Putin too. I mean, don't forget, Putin is partly fighting a war in Ukraine to protect his physical survival. He thinks Ukraine is a threat to his physical survival. That's what a regime security war is for Putin. It's not a war just to secure his regime. It's also a war to secure his physicality, because the collapse of the regime is a threat to his physicality. And that's, of course, the extraordinary ignorance of Trump. I mean, Trump thinks that he can make a deal, that he can shift Putin. Putin's physical livelihood is at stake with his Ukraine war, as far as Putin's own thinking about this is concerned. So if Trump weren't so ignorant, he'd be saying, well, I'm going to try to move this leader of Russia on an issue that concerns what he understands to be his physical well-being and his physical survival. Well, once you put it like that, you'd understand that it shouldn't be easy to move someone like that. But Trump is ignorant, he doesn't know that. I think an important lesson we can take from this is that somebody like Putin, um, who is less procedurally constrained than she is actually, um, is bound to remain very good at instrumental rationality, but his values go really, really loopy. That's what happens after all this time in unchecked power. We talked often about Putin having various kinds of pathologies from a young age. We've done some videos on the main channel about Putin's evolution in power. But the reality is that a Putin from the year 2000 would be absolutely flabbergasted by the Putin of today. This Putin would be sort of abnormal to the earlier, in the eyes of the earlier Putin on very many counts. So their values are very different. And their values are no longer objectively tied to the well-being of their country. I mean, these are people who view the world in such a way that they'd be happy if they run a small country to destroy their small country as long as they could stay in power. And if they run bigger countries, destroy not just their country, but other countries around, if not the world. And these people, of course, think that they're doing the right thing, and often their strange ways of going on are based on sincere conviction. It's certainly the case with Putin, but it doesn't make them any less nuts. So the point to understand is that the nuttiness does not set in at the level of instrumental rationality. At that level, Putin is more grounded and better thought through in his actions than almost all Western leaders. But when it comes to his why, when it comes to his aims, his purposes, there his monitors have long disconnected from planet Earth. And he is sort of floating over maps of territory, floating over history books, and talking to himself about the world. I mean, his conversations are essentially conversations with himself, his conversations about the world. And one of the conversations that he recurringly has is about immortality. I mean, there is a part of Putin that wants to live forever. And he knows that's not quite rational. So he sort of fragments into these two relationships with the question of longevity. One, a very pragmatic relationship. Hey guys, everybody around me, maximize my odds of living longer. But then the other relationship is, well, I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. I can't have death realistically put on the table for me, because that challenges everything. Because by now he's not capable of separating himself from all the other things that matter. So he is Russia, and up to a point, he probably thinks he is the heartbeat of contemporary history as well. Some of Putin's confidence about his prospects in the war that keeps puzzling some Western leaders is about various things his military folks tell him, his intelligence folks tell him. But some of it is just the sense that somehow the beat of history is on his side, not because he associates his own victoriousness with historical progress. He doesn't believe in the Fukuyamian story of convergence and modernization, but he thinks that some kind of propulsion of Russia, if it's going to happen at all, is going to be something that appropriately happens under his guidance, because somehow he has converged with historical narrative. So all of what I've said sounds wishy-washy, semi-mystical, And it's important that that's the case. But it's also important that in the pursuit of these increasingly strange values, Putin remains sort of rigorously sober, cool, and empirical when it comes to the instrumental rationality of how do I get from A to B. Lots of love.